Hello, in this video I'll be showing you how you can edit a photo as a beginner in Photoshop from the very start to the very end. And in this video we are going to be learning about skin retouching, color grading, dodging and burning, blemish removal, eye whitening, and how to get the best skin tones for your photos when it comes to Photoshop. And this is going to be a slightly kind of long tutorial than the usual tutorials that we always upload. So if I told you how to download the image to follow along, simply check the description of this video and you're going to get a link to download the raw file so that you can follow along with this kind of video or with this kind of tutorial. So after doing that, it's simply going to head into editing this very photo. So in order to open the image when it comes to Photoshop, we are simply going to come and right click and come to open with and come to Photoshop 2025 because that's the version I want to use to edit this kind of image. And as you can see, this image is slanting or tilting. So since the image is tilting, we are simply going to come and get the crop tool and rotate or flip the image so that it can be in its portrait format. So after straightening the image or moving the image where it was meant to be, we are going to come to the adjustments here, and with this we just want to simply correct the lighting and contrast issues regarding this very image. And you are going to come to the light option and correct some of the highlights in this image by taking or moving the highlight slider down, and we are basically going to do the same for the white slider, just like that. And we're just going to open up the shadows of this very image and add some contrast and simply increase on the exposure, and you can see the before after. And you're just going to take the black slightly down to add more contrast within the dark tones of the image. So we are going to come and click on open in order to open the image in Photoshop. Right now we're in Photoshop, and the very first thing we tend to do when it comes to Photoshop is first of all cropping the image. So depending on what you want to use the image for, always ensure or make sure that you crop the image first. So we're going to come and get the crop tool and choose a ratio of 45 or 8:10 and just simply move around, click to move around until when you feel like the cropping is appropriate for you. So I'll just ensure that always when you're cropping portraits, the eyes have to be in this topmost line or close to this line. So I'll just come and hit enter or return. And after cropping the image, the next thing we just want to do, sorry about this. So the next thing that we're going to be doing, we are simply going to come to the image and we first of all look at it. We're just going to be using frequency separation to do the skin retouching. So in order to do the skin retouching, we want first of all divide this very image into the textures and the colors. So you can see that right now we have only one layer, and that is the photo that is displaying. So we just want to create two layers from the background layer. One of the two layers created is going to be containing colors, and the other is going to be containing the details or the textures in this very photo. So come right here to the background image and press Ctrl J, or you can use Command J twice. So just press Ctrl J, or you can use Command J, and you can double click that layer. So the middle layer is going to be the color layer, or some people call it the low frequency layer. Then the upper layer is going to be the texture. So other people call it the high frequency layer. So in this video, I'm going to be using both terms regarding these layers as I have been able to name them. So we are going to come to the color layer. So as we have named these layers, we only want to remain with colors and textures as we have named the layers. But right now, these layers are containing both colors and textures. So we have selected the color layer, and in the color layer, what do we want to remain with? We only want to remain with the colors or the skin tones in this layer. So select the color layer and briefly click on the visibility icon to hide or turn off the texture layer. So simply come to where you see filter blur and come to Gaussian blur. Remember, this is the most important step when it comes to frequency separation. And if at all you have always had issues regarding maintaining the original skin details or skin textures in your photos, this is the step that you usually go wrong. But if at all you are a beginner and you don't know about frequency separation, I'm about to uncover the secret right now. So I'm just going to come to where you see radius and left click and drag the radius slider all the way down. So the point here is we just want to deal with the skin. We are not dealing with the clothes, we are dealing with the skin. So we just want to blur away the details from the skin. So just come and click on an area on the skin that seems to have more skin details or skin textures, and you can use this arrow key to or the icon to zoom into the textures to see them better. So the point here is we have to move this radius slider until when we are starting to close out on the details on the skin or the textures in the skin. So to do that, you simply left click and start dragging up the radius slider. So you left click and drag up, but you have to left click while dragging and you release the left click button so that you can see the effect being applied onto or over the skin. So left click and drag and you release to see the effect being applied. So you left click and drag. So the point here is we have to stop at the point whereby we are just starting to close out on the skin details. So depending on the photo that you're going to be editing, the higher the radius you use, the more details you're going to be remaining with in the image, and the lower the radius you use, the less of the details you're going to be remaining with in the final image. That is why it is very important to move it while looking at the skin so that you find that sweet and nice spot whereby the textures are just starting to disappear. We can still identify where the textures are, but the textures are just starting to disappear. The point is, stop at the point whereby the textures are just starting to disappear from the image. So after doing that, we're just going to come and click on OK. So as you can analyze that if at all we zoom into the image by using Ctrl plus on the keyboard, or you can use Command plus on the keyboard, you can see the image is looking a little bit blurry, meaning right now we are looking at colors and the image or the photo is lacking details. So we are going to come and select the layer that we initially deactivated previously. So you're just going to select it and now activate it. So after you have activated that layer, the next thing is simply going to be we only want to remain with textures in the currently selected layer. So how do we do that? We are simply going to come to image and come to apply image. So after coming to apply image, it is going to open up this apply image dialog box right here. And with that open, make sure the source is basically the name of the photo that we are editing. So the layer, we're going to select the color layer. Usually or always select the color layer. The channel has to be RGB. So this doesn't matter if at all you are editing an 8-bit image or if at all you are editing a 16-bit image. These settings are always going to be constant. Layer and channel are always going to be constant. Then this is where we have to change some settings. So make sure if at all you have 16 right here, it means your photo is a 16-bit image, and these are the settings you have to use to have better results for editing a 16-bit image. Under blending right here, make sure add is selected if at all you are editing a 16-bit image. So if at all you have 16 right there, it means your photo is a 16-bit photo. Opacity is 100%, preserve transparency and mask are not checked. The scale is 2 and offset 0. And make sure you click or turn on the invert option. And as soon as you do that, you're going to notice that the textures are going to be displaying on this gray layer, which is lacking colors. But in case you're editing an 8-bit image, these are settings that you have to use. So layer is constant, color or low frequency layer. Channel is RGB. Make sure the invert option is not turned on. This is for an 8-bit image. The blending for an 8-bit image is subtract. The scale is 2. Offset 128. Make sure preserve transparency and mask are not checked, and you'll have the same result. So ours is a 16-bit image. We are simply going to revert to 16-bit settings and click OK. So after doing that, you can notice that we have lost out the colors, but we want to bring back the colors. So the blend mode that is going to bring back the colors in this very photo is going to be linear light. So just come to the blend mode right here of the layer and change it from normal to linear light, and you can see it brings back the colors. But this layer is containing textures and this other layer is containing colors. So after I have done that, it means that we have successfully divided the frequencies of this image into the colors and the textures. So in order to prove that, we are simply going to put these two in a group. So hold down Ctrl or Command and select both layers. Then you can press Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard, or you can simply drag the selected layers and drag them into this folder icon to put them in a group. You can rename that group to frequency separation if at all you wish to. So after renaming, hit enter or return to save the edited settings. So we are going to open up this. So for this point, we just want to prove if at all it is basically the same image that is containing colors and the textures. Just come to the background image and simply hide it, and you can see as soon as we hide the background image, we still remain with the same image, but this image or this photo has been separated into two layers, which is the colors. If at all I turn off the color layer, we have the textures displaying, and if at all I select the color layer and I turn off the textures, we also have the colors. So when we combine both or we select both layers, it is basically the same photo that we end up with. So we are going to come back and activate our initial background image. So after doing that, it is time to do the skin retouching. So in order to do skin retouching, we are going to be using two tools for the skin retouching. And these tools basically are going to be the mixer brush tool. And the purpose for using the mixer brush tool is to blend or even out the skin tone transitions in the photo. And later on, we are going to be using the lasso tool to fine tune the areas that we may have accidentally missed out as we are trying to use the mixer brush tool. So we are going to come and select the color layer. So the first point of skin retouching, you can either start by removing the blemishes first, then you fine tune the skin tones, or you can as well work on the skin tones first and later on work on the blemishes. So for this, we just want to work with the first layer. So select the color layer and hide or turn off the texture layer, and at this point you are going to be seeing only the colors in the image. So after doing that, just come to the brushes, right click and get the mixer brush tool. So you come to the brushes, right click and get the mixer brush tool. In case you can't find the mixer brush tool under the brushes, you can locate it below here. After selecting the mixer brush tool, for every tool you select in Photoshop, the settings are always going to display above here. So we have selected the mixer brush tool and these settings are displaying above there. So make sure the hardness set to 0, soft round brush is selected, and make sure clean brush is selected. We have two options, the first one being load brush after each stroke and the second being clean brush after each stroke. Remember, as we are trying to blend the tones in the skin tones are usually having different colors. You can see this area on the forehead is brighter than the area on the cheek area. So we want to command the brush to be automatically clean because we don't want to drag color from this bright area and put them to the dark area, and that is going to distort the model's face. So that is why we have selected the second option, that is clean brush after each stroke. With the weight of 9%, we don't want the brush to spill colors as we are trying to blend given areas on the skin. The load is 75, mix is 90, flow at 100%. make sure sample all layers is not turned on, because when you leave this turned on accidentally and you accidentally leave the texture layer displaying, when you start painting over the skin, you can see that the brush, you have commanded Photoshop to sample colors from both the textures and paint them to the colors. That is why we are painting back textures in the color layer which we don't want. So make sure you don't turn on the sample all layers option. So after doing that, just come and hide the texture or high frequency layer. So in order to work better on the image, to see the uneven skin tone transitions, you don't have to use the mixer brush tool when the image is zoomed all the way like this. The reason for this is because when you do this, you can't see the uneven skin tone transitions in the photo. So always make sure that you edit at a distance, and in this way you can see the uneven skin tone transitions. So how to apply the mixer brush tool? Make sure the brush is showing the circle icon like it is showing right now, and if at all it is showing a plus icon like this, make sure you deactivate the caps lock key on the keyboard. So as you're blending or brushing on the skin, you have to keep on using different sizes of the brush, and that can be done by using the open and close brackets on the keyboard to increase or reduce on the size of the mixer brush tool. So as you're brushing, we also have to follow the way the face is shaped. For example, if at all I'm to brush on the forehead area, you can see it is moving in this kind of direction. So I have to follow how the skin is flowing. So you can see that these pimples are following this kind of circular motion. So I'll also move the brush strokes in that direction. So to blend using the brush, simply hold down the left click button and you mix a given color. So left click and hold down and you mix a color in that given area, and when you feel like you're done mixing that color, you release the left click button and left click once again on a brand new color to blend the skin color or the skin tones in that given area. So that is how you can easily use the mixer brush tool to blend the tones in a given area. So you can see we have a highlight right here. So I'll blend that highlight just like that. And where these colors are transitioning from the highlight to the next color, you use a very small brush and you blend on that line to create a smooth transition between the skin tones in that given area. So you can notice that the forehead is looking a little bit plastic, but this is very important because right now we are dealing with colors and we just want to ensure that the skin tones are blending well. But when you come back and turn on the texture layer, you can see the textures are still left intact in the photo. So you're just going to come and turn off the texture layer once again. With the color layer selected, we are going to use the same procedure for the nose. You can see the nose is moving from up to down. So I'll simply left click and blend the dark area of the nose just like that. So you have to follow the direction of how the skin is flowing. So you can see the nose is moving in an up down direction. So I'll mix the highlights alone, midtones alone, and the shadows alone on the nose. So for the nose, basically we have two tones, that is the dark tones and the brightest tone. So you can see on the eye. So when it comes to the cheek area, we are going to slightly increase on the brush and blend that dark tone right there and blend this dark tone. And by just doing this, you can see that we are going to keep and maintain the original shape of the model's face. You can see below the eye, the tones are moving in this direction. So the brush also has to follow the direction of the eye just like that. So this is what we're going to be doing for the rest of the image. And the more you practice, the better you're going to be training your eyes to see where to blend and where not to blend regarding this step for using the mixer brush tool. So reduce on the size. I'll also come to this other side of the eye and follow the direction. So you can see I'm not zooming all the way in because I want to see the uneven skin tone transitions so that I can blend them better. And this is going to enable you retouch quickly and faster because you're going to be covering a wide area within a short period of time. So you can see right now we have been able to work on the skin and it looks a little bit smooth. So when you turn on the texture layer, you can see everything has been left intact within this very photo. So you can see the before, after. So we're going to be doing this for even the hand because we don't want to leave other areas that contain skin. Remember, we are doing skin retouching. That's why it would be really absurd to leave out other areas that have skin. So you can say hand is moving in this direction. So I will also follow that direction, mix the shadows alone, the highlight alone, and mix this other area alone, and use a small brush to blend right here close to her palm. So you can see I'll just reduce on the size and try to blend in the dark area of the finger or the fingers. And you can see what we are going to be achieving. So I'll just be doing this for the rest of the fingers or the hand. So after blending every area that contains skin tone, the next step is going to be activating or turning on the high frequency layer. So let's see the before and after for the retouching process right now. So you can see the before, after, and after. We have blended the tones and it is time to bring in the second technique, that is using the lasso tool. So in order to use the lasso tool, we are simply going to come and select the lasso tool. So this is the lasso tool, or you can press L on the keyboard. Make sure new selection mode is activated and the feathering is 20 pixels. The reason for using a feathering of 20 pixels, when we select on the skin, for example, like that, you can see when I press Q on the keyboard, it brings a preview of the selection and you can see the edges are soft enough. That is why you have to use a feathering of 20 or slightly 20 and above, or you can even use 18 and above in the pixel area. So just type in the value if at all you want a smooth edge. But if at all you press Q once again to hide the active selection and you use a feathering of maybe 0 pixels and we make the same selection, you can see when I press Q, you can see how rough or how sharp the edge of the selection is. So make sure the selection is as smooth as possible and type in 20. I think 20 is okay. Make sure new selection is active, the first option, feathering is 20 pixels and alias is checked. And this time around, we are still selected on the color layer. We are going to draw over the skin. So for the forehead area, keep away from the eyebrows or the edges. So to draw over the skin, we left click and draw, or we move the cursor to make a selection. Come to filter, come to blur, come back to Gaussian blur. And when you do this, you can see it brings back the original or initial radius we had for our frequency separation. So you can either manually move this towards the right hand side and stop at the point whereby the textures are looking a little bit more natural and the skin is blending better. But if at all you're not comfortable doing that, I'm just going to type in 6 once again. If at all you're not comfortable manually moving this, just multiply your radius by 3. So we use a radius of 6 for this. So whichever radius that you may have used for your image, just multiply that radius by 3 and type in the value. So 6 by 3 is 18. I'll just delete 6 and type in 18, and you can see it is basically close to what we had when we manually moved the slider. Click OK, and to deselect, click out from the selection. You can press Ctrl D or you can use Command D. So I'll select right here. You can see the shapes are following the way the model's face is shaped. So just come back to filter, blur, come to Gaussian blur, click OK. Just come to this side of the cheek, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And when you find that the effect is too much after applying it, right click on the selection and come to fade Gaussian blur, and you can reduce on the opacity of the effect in a given area. So I'll be doing this for the rest of the model skin. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So I'll leave everything to the maximum so that you can see the effect in real time. So when it comes to the nose, I'll apply it only and only on the dark areas of the nose. So you can see I'll just apply it right there below or on top of her lip. So this step basically fine tunes the facial structures or the areas that we may have accidentally missed out when we are using the mixer brush tool. So I'll deselect that, and you can see a before and after so far for the skin retouching. So next we just want to clean up or remove the pimples or blemishes. So to remove the blemishes, select the texture layer. Remember, blemishes are part of the textures in the image. We are going to zoom in by using Ctrl plus on the keyboard, or you can use Command plus on the keyboard to see the pimples or blemishes better. So to remove, for example, a pimple, you can hold down and make sure that you have selected the clone stamp tool or whichever tool you prefer to use. So for this, we're just going to be learning about the clone stamp tool because it manually selects and replaces the blemishes. So select the clone stamp tool, make sure the hardness is set to 0, mode is normal, opaque at 100%, flat 100%. The sample has to be set to current layer, and aligned is also checked. So to remove this pimple, for example, we have to sample clean skin from an area that is nearby. And after copying clean skin, you're just going to paste clean skin over the pimple to eliminate that pimple. So how do we do that? We hold down the Option key on the keyboard, Option for Mac, Alternate for Windows, Option, then left click on a clean area near the pimple, but make sure that the size of clone stamp tool is slightly bigger than the pimple that you want to cover. Option and left click, and you can reduce or increase on the size of the clone stamp tool by using the box bracket keys on the keyboard. So Option, left click, and release the Option key on the keyboard, and also release the left click button, and left click once again over the pimple, and that pimple is going to be replaced with the clean skin that was copied from nearby. So for whichever pimple that you're trying to eliminate or cover, you have to keep on sampling from different areas by holding down the Option key on the keyboard. So one pro tip here is always keep your finger on the Option key on the keyboard, or keep your finger on the alternate key on the keyboard, and simply use that to copy and paste over the pimple to eliminate it. So you can see this technique does not leave any kind of patches regarding the areas where the pimples or where the blemishes have been removed or eliminated. So I'm just going to be doing this for the rest of the pimples or blemishes on the model skin, and you can see this is going to take a while, but always make sure that you take your time with this because you don't want to leave any pimples on your subject's skin. Remember, we are doing skin retouching and we just want the most perfect results after doing the skin retouching. If at all you're finding value from this kind of video, I request that you hit the like button and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll press Command minus to zoom out to see if at all I have been able to eliminate the pimples from the skin. So right now we have eliminated majority or most of the pimples on the skin, and you can see the before after. So now that the skin looks better and looks natural, you can proceed to the next step of skin retouching. That is, if at all you want to color grade, you can create a stamp visible layer by pressing Shift Option Command E on the keyboard. Shift Option Command E. Then for Windows, it is Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard. Create a stamp visible layer. And after creating that layer, you're just going to come to Select and come to Subject, or you can use any tool that you prefer to use to select around the subject. So with the subject selected, we are going to simply come to the empty layer icon and click on it to create a new empty layer. Change its blend mode from normal to color. And after doing that, we're just going to come to the brush and get the brush tool. This time around, we're using the normal brush tool. And make sure the hardness set to 0, soft round brush is selected. The mode is normal, opacity in the flat 100%. We're just going to sample a color on the skin of the model or the subject. So just going to hold down the Option key on the keyboard and click on the color of the skin that we want the rest of the skin to look like. So Option and left click on the color that we want the rest of the skin to look like. Control minus to zoom out, and simply left click and hold down and start painting over the skin. So to paint on the skin, we are simply left clicking and painting or drawing over the skin. You hold down the left click button and you move around the skin to paint on it. So you can see that right now this is going to give us a slightly kind of uniform skin color or uniform skin tone for our model. Don't mind if at all you paint on an area you don't want to paint in the first place, because I'll show you later on how you can easily perfect that area. So I'm just going to come to the hand area and also do the painting just like that. Come to the fingers and also do the painting. So you can see right now that the skin is looking a little bit more even and the colors on the skin are looking a little bit more on the even side. So if at all you did not want to paint in a given area, this is what you have to do. With this empty layer selected, just come and get the eraser tool, or you can press E on the keyboard. Make sure the mode is set to brush and it is soft round. So make sure the opacity and the flow is 100%. So to eliminate color from, for example, the lips, simply paint on or over the lips and that color is going to be eliminated. So after doing that, right now that the effect looks a little bit too much, come to the opacity and reduce on the opacity so that the effect can look a little bit more natural. So I'm just going to go with around -60 or 64% rather, before, after, before, after. The skin now looks to be uniform. And right now, what do you want to do? Deselect the active selection by pressing Ctrl D, or you can use Command D on the keyboard to deselect the active selection. So when you find that the skin is a little bit too warm for your liking, simply come and create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Make sure you select the reds and come to where you see lightness and drag it down, and that is going to slightly cool down the color or the orange tones from the skin so that the skin can look a little bit more better and natural. Next, what do you want to do? We just want to add shape or dimension to the model's face or to her skin. So I'm just going to put the color grading in the same group and drag them to put them in a group. I'll name that to color grading CG. And after doing that, we're just going to do the dodging and burning. What is dodging and burning? Dodging and burning is basically enhancing the highlights and enhancing the shadows of the image. So to do this, we're just going to be using the curves adjustment layer. So in order to do that, we're just going to come adjustments and come to curves. Then you're going to come to the properties, click in the middle and drag down, first of all, to darken. With the white layer mask selected, press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I to invert or hide the effect behind the black mask. Remember, we just darkened. Burning is for the shadows or darkening. So I'm just going to name that to burn. And you are going to do the same for the brightening curves. Click in the middle and drag that up to brighten up the image. Press Ctrl, you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect, and we can name that to Dodge, and select both layers. Then press Ctrl G, or you can use Command G to put them in a group. You can name that to Dodge and Burn. So after doing that, open up the group by clicking on the drop down arrow and select the Burn layer mask. We are going to come back to the brush tool. Make sure the mode is normal, and make sure the opacity this time around is going to be around 9 or 10%. The flow is 100%. Make sure you have black and white on these two color swatches. So if at all you have any other random color apart from black and white, you can simply left click on the tiny squares or swatches. Then we are selected on the burn layer mask. So burning is for darkening. So with white as a foreground color, we're just going to paint on the areas we feel should be having the shadows in the image. So the nose area, use a small brush and paint on the nose area just like that to create more shape or dimension to the model's face. So just paint right there, come to the far area right there and also paint there. So do the same for the bright areas. Dodging is for highlight, so I'll just paint on her cheek area and also try to enhance some parts of the eyeshadow just like that. So I can even do it for the lips and this area right there, and come to the chin area and also do that, some parts of the fingers just like that. And this is going to create shape or dimension. So you can see the before and after for the dodging and burning. And if at all you want it to blend better, come to the properties and select masks and simply turn up the feathering for both the dodging and the burning. So if at all you want to intensify on the effect, you can simply duplicate the burn layer by pressing Ctrl J, and that is going to intensify on the effect, but that is going to be too much. You can reduce on the opacity of the duplicated burn copy layer. So you can say before, after, before, after. So when you find that the effect is too much for dodging and burning, always come to the opacity and reduce on the opacity to your liking. So I'm just going to leave it around 83 before, after. So the next thing, or the final step for the color grading process or the retouching, is simply doing the eye whitening. So in order to whiten the eyes, we are simply going to come, adjustments, create a hue and saturation adjustment layer. So if at all we are to zoom in and analyze what's wrong with the eyes, you can see that we have some random colors in the white area of the eye. Remember, we have created a hue and saturation adjustment layer. You're just going to come and make sure master is selected, then come to where you see saturation and simply take down the saturation slider. And as soon as you do that, you can see the colors in the white area are just going to start disappearing. So I'll take this a little bit far to around -78. With this white layer mask selected, the reason that's why the image is turned to black and white is because the effect is affecting the overall image. So just want the effect only affect the white area of the eye. So with the white layer mask selected, remember in Photoshop, white is going to show. That is why the effect is showing over the whole image, and black is going to hide. So just want to invert the effect from affecting the overall image and hide it. So we are going to simply press Ctrl I on the keyboard, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect. So press Ctrl I, or you can use Command I on the keyboard to invert the effect, and the effect is going to be hidden behind the black mask. So what we have to do in this case, we just want to reveal it by painting using a white brush. Remember, white reveals and black hides. So the effect is hidden behind the black mask. So come the opacity, increase it to 100%. With white as the top color, reduce on the size of your brush and simply paint on the white area. Make sure you are painting on what is meant to be the white area in the eye, just like that. And in this, or by just doing this, you can see that the eyes are going to be whitened. So you can even paint a little bit more on the catch light in the eyes, and you can see right now the eyes are going to be all look white. So if I told you you have overdone that, always come the opacity and reduce on the opacity or the effect of the eye whitening so that it can look a little bit more natural and realistic. So the final step for editing photos in Photoshop is simply going to be saving the image so that it can be sharp enough and so that it doesn't change in color when you post it or when you print it out. So we're going to simply come to File, Export, and come to Export As. So when you come to Export As, it is going to open up this other window that has Export As on top. Make sure the format is set to JPEG, quality set to the maximum, which is highest, because we want a very high quality kind of photo after saving. Make sure the resample is set to bicubic sharper because we want a sharp image during the saving process. Make sure when you come to color space, the color space is set to convert to sRGB and also embed color profile have been checked. Click on export and you can choose a location where you want to save your photo or your image and you can hit save. So this is how you can easily edit and color grade in Photoshop as a beginner from the start to the very end. And let me show you the overall before and after for everything that we have done in Photoshop. This is the image before, after, before, after, before, and after. This is how you can edit. And if at all you have enjoyed this video, I request that you hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe this channel if at all you have been watching and you are not a subscriber to this channel. Ronnix from ronnixphotography. Thanks for watching and seeing yet more videos on this channel. Don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.